Hi, I'm the anonymous voice of F1 Reverse, and this is Don't At Me, featuring Daniel Ricciardo, the death of Alpine, and the Christian Horner controversy that just won't stop. Let's check it out. So for our regular viewers, I bet this is a bit of a surprise. I've been speaking to you for the best part of 2.5 years, over 550 videos at this point, and if you've watched all of those, then I'm sorry you've had to listen to me talk so much. This is Don't At Me. This is a new series that we're going to be running. It's a chance for me and the team to get real with what's happening in F1. We bring you daily updates, we bring you the news, we bring you quotes, we bring you speculation at times, and, facts, technical stuff, all that kind of thing. But what we don't get to really bring you so much is opinion. This show is going to be that. We've got a lot of opinion. When we speak about things, such as the topics we're going to cover today, it's hard to get across our feelings without giving you a face to talk back to. So this is that, and this is that face. We'll still be putting out our normal coverage. You'll still be getting all the updates from everything happening in the sport. But this is just going to be a weekly thing in addition to that. Me, I'm George. I'm the voiceover artist, scriptwriter, and researcher. I've been watching F1 for the best part of 20 years. I'm a fan of good racing more than anything else. For example, in Abu Dhabi, I know the racing was pretty terrible at the front, and Max basically wasn't on the TV coverage past lap 3 or something. But the racing behind K-Mag was pretty exciting. I enjoyed seeing Yuki battle him. I enjoyed seeing the Williams were up there. There was even an Alpine there somehow. We'll talk more about them later. Obviously, I'd love to see people fighting at the front, and we all would. But I'd just like to see good racing. In terms of teams I actually support, McLaren were the first team I really followed back when it was Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. That was kind of when I started watching the sport 20-ish years ago. Yeah, that's me. So then we've got Abby. He's a channel owner. He's the investor in the channel. He's a new fan to Formula One. He found the sport because of Drive to Survive, and you can at him and tell him how wrong he is, then that he should have found it sooner. He loves the sport. At times he gets scarily passionate about it. And even though he doesn't know his diffusers from his Daniel Ricciardo's, he cares and he gets excited, and that's the most important thing. Anyway, now that's everyone introduced, let's start talking about Formula One. So I want to start off with Daniel Ricciardo. Daniel Ricciardo, I've always been a big fan of. I like Renault as a team, more on them later. I'm obviously a McLaren fan, but his time at McLaren was tough. Getting let go a year before the end of his contract, being paid a large sum of money not to drive in Formula One, can't have been easy for him. Getting picked up by Red Bull to be their PR guy, great. Genius move by Red Bull. Great for Daniel. He gets to be in a simulator. He gets to test some cars. He gets to build up his confidence. He unexpectedly gets Nick de Vries's seat halfway through a season. But he wasn't expecting that. So he comes back into AlphaTauri. Sergio Perez is having a tough season. And everyone's like, oh my god, Daniel's here to replace Checo. Like, they have to fire Checo. He's not good enough. He can't challenge Max. So Daniel comes in. He's on the team. He races 2 races. Everyone's like, yeah, he's getting back into Formula One. He's been out for a bit. It's nothing exciting. He's in AlphaTauri. That's fine. Then he breaks his hand in Netherlands, which meant we didn't get to see a huge amount of him over the last season. It was only 7 races, I think. During those races, though, he got the 7th place in Mexico, which was impressive. And it seemed like the beginning of something as well, and everyone got really excited by the idea he might actually be back, and that he might be able to replace Sergio Perez, but everyone kind of forgot about Yuki Tsunoda a little bit. When you compare the two, especially in 2023, perhaps the excitement about Daniel was a little bit premature. There was the race before Mexico. So the race before Daniel got his 7th place, that was COTA. And Yuki got 8th place and the fastest lap, but Daniel was 15th. Then there was the race after Mexico, which was Brazil. And I think Yuki was 6th in the sprint and then 9th in the race. And Daniel was 9th and then 13th, but only 14 cars finished that race. so second last, which obviously isn't great. Then in Abu Dhabi, Yuki was 8th, Daniel was 11th. So Yuki was kind of, as the AlphaTauri car improved and they started actually challenging for points at the end of the season, Yuki was the guy doing that. And though Daniel did it in Mexico, he kind of, didn't do it at the same time while Yuki was. So while everyone was calling for Daniel to replace Checo, Yuki was kind of being the better driver. And I don't know, Yuki's got his problems. He's angry, he's excitable, he's explosive at times, he's incredibly entertaining. And anyone who thinks otherwise is basically a complete idiot, by the way. I'm not going to be atted on that, definitely. So over the winter, there were some questions about whether Checo would even return, so coming into 2024, or if Daniel would just replace him straight out. Red Bull have kicked out drivers mid-contract before. Nick de Vries, for example, who Daniel replaced. I mean, Daniel himself has been kicked out mid-contract, obviously from McLaren with a year left. Coming into this year, I think there was a lot of expectation on Daniel Ricciardo, and not really a lot on Checo. People kind of expected him to not really be there. He obviously is fighting for his seat in the sport because his contract is out at the end of this season, as is Daniel's. But yeah, they've come back, and I think there was this expectation that Daniel was just going to be good and score points in what is now VCARB, or RB, I'm going to call him, that's easier. That he was going to score points and be great, and there was lots of talk about this is going to be a good car. But the reality is that Daniel has not looked very good, and Checo looks incredible. Really, really good. Something about Daniel, when he left McLaren, was that he complained a lot about the car and couldn't get the most out of it, while Lando Norris complained a lot about the car, but did get something out of it. And that's kind of already happening again with Daniel at RB. So he complained a lot after Saudi Arabia about the car quite a bit, and he kind of said he wasn't comfortable, and I've got an exact quote of him actually. He said, "It was always going to be an uphill battle. We simply don't have everything functioning at 100%. We see a few flaws, honestly, with the car, so we've got to get that fixed for the next one." This is kind of, you see what I mean? It's Yuki looked good in the race. I know he finished 15th and Daniel was 16th, but that's not the full story. Yuki was caught in that Magnussen train. He was there for ages. He, killed his tyres trying to get past Magnussen, and then everyone overtook him and then killed their tyres trying to get past Magnussen. Yuki potentially could have been further up. It could have been way out of way of Daniel, who just wasn't really in the race at all. But this is it, Yuki's getting something out of this car, and Daniel's just complaining about not being comfortable. And I know it's very early days yet, but this whole Daniel replacing Checo thing never really made 100% sense to me, because Daniel never really showed that he could replace Checo. Based on the first two races, I feel like I'm being proven right, but we'll see how that plays out. Okay, let's talk the death of Alpine, which is very dramatic, but the death of Alpine is happening. I love Renault. I've been a big Renault fan from the Fernando days, when they came back in 2016, especially when Danny Ric was there. He joined in 2019. That was really exciting. You were like, wow, this Renault team's exciting. They're fun. They're going in a great direction. They had Cyril as the team principal, who was such a personality as well. But Renault have this problem in Formula One. They have this thing where they burn really brightly for a few seasons and then they completely collapse. So their first stint in the sport was 1977 to 85. So in 81 and 82, they finished third in the championship with Alain Prost and René Arnoux, I think it was. And then in 83, they finished second before firing Prost at the end of the season. And he was the runner-up in the Drivers' Championship as well. And that was just completely ridiculous. I know he badmouthed the team and that was why they got rid of him, but he was just saying how it was. He was like, "You're not developing the car. Do something about it." And Renault were like, "No, you're fired." Which happens again. So in 2 years' time, after they'd fired Prost, they left F1, and their final season, which was 85, they finished 7th in the Constructors' Championship, and with some drivers that you've never even heard of before. So then they come back for a second stint, 2002 to 2011. And the same thing happens. Alonso wins some championships, the team looks great. And then they just nosedive, eventually selling 25% of the team to Lotus in 2010, and then they leave in 2011. I don't know how. I don't know how that happens. But then in 2016, they come back. And you're like, okay, things look sensible. You know, they're building, they're here for the long run. F1's financially stable now, so they can hang around and get better. Daniel Ricciardo joins in 2019, and the team looked great. And then they changed the name to Alpine, who make the ugliest sports cars you've ever seen, by the way. Truly a sin to even own one of those things. Someone actually owns one down the street from me, and I've seen it in person, and it is vile. But anyway, they changed the name to Alpine. There's the 100 race plan, and everything just goes downhill. And it's just all gone wrong. And this season especially, they've fallen off a cliff. They're drowning at the bottom, and their bodies are like completely mangled. That's how badly they've fallen off the cliff. There are staff jumping ship at a ridiculous rate. So the technical director, Matt Harmon, he left recently, as did the aerodynamics head, Dirk de Beer. I think they left this month, actually. Then you've got last summer, the 2 weeks last summer, you have Chief Executive Laurent Rossi, Team Principal Otmar Safnauer, Sporting Director Alan Permain, and Chief Technical Officer Pat Fry all to go. Then there's former Racing Director David Brivio. He left at the end of 2023 and went back to MotoGP. And all of this happened back when Cyril was team principal. Well, it started when he was team principal, and he got fired. And then the board started to take over, and that's just... everything's gone wrong since the board got involved. And it's so sad to see a Renault team that's just driven into the ground. And as much as I would love them to hang around, I just get this feeling that Andretti's going to step in pretty soon, probably in the next year or so, and just buy the team. Because that's Renault's MO. They'll make an engine for Andretti. It'll probably still be a terrible engine. They'll probably be really slow, and Andretti will complain about it until they, I don't know, change to Honda or something like that. That's what's going to happen, though, and it makes me really angry that they've ruined the Renault team in this way. Okay, last thing to talk about. Christian Horner, Red Bull. Now, I'm not going to get into this too much. It's called Don't At Me, so don't at me about talking about it. But I do want to get into some of it. So I'm not going to cover the if he did it, if he didn't do it, who's wrong, who's right, will Nui leave the team, is Jos dating Horner's accuser, is Helmut actually behind it, is Red Bull an evil company because their team principal may or may not have sent inappropriate messages to an employee, all that stuff. I'm not going to cover it. What I do want to talk about is the situation as a whole and how it impacts the sport. So Alonso recently said, there's too much talk off track because on-track activities are not very exciting at the moment. There is one car winning the last 72 Grand Prix, more or less dominating 3 years. So when this happens in a sport, there's always a lot of activity off track. And I agree, if there was more of a battle on track, there would be less chat about what's happening off track. Is it bad for the sport? Yes, it is bad for the sport because you want the focus to be on the actual sport, not on Christian Horner's private life and the PR workings or HR workings of the Red Bull team. But frankly, I don't care if he tried to cheat on his wife with someone from the team or not. I care about Formula One and racing. The thing that's really annoying about it, though, is that if everything was just open, and they actually said what was happening, it wouldn't be exciting, and the media would be gone, and that'd be the end of it, and no one would be bothered anymore. But what they're doing is just hiding and just saying no comment to everything, and it's like, why? If Horner was sending naughty messages to an employee, then just admit it. If the messages we were all seeing were fake, then say that. It's the lack of engagement from the team which is creating all the talk and controversy and detracting from actual interesting Formula One. What do I think will happen? I don't know. I haven't got a clue. But with the way it's all going at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised if it's just swept under a rug and Red Bull say no comment to any and all questions, and in a month's time, the whole thing's forgotten. Okay, that was Don't At Me. I feel so much better for having got all those opinions off my chest. Let me know your opinions. Let me know what you think about everything we talked about in the video. Just don't at me. Also, let me know what you think about the format. If you don't want to see my face again, if you think I should be dressed up in something. A suit, maybe? I could have a clipboard in one hand. Whatever you want. But again, this was Don't At Me. I was George. Thanks for watching.